Shalom and welcome to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and excited to introduce you to Deborah Coty, an inspirational speaker and author of the popular book series, Too Blessed to be Stressed, with more than 500,000 books sold. Her passion is sharing a blend of biblical truth, gift-wrapped in humor, encouragement, and unconventional wisdom with women of all ages. She believes that the stresses of life become manageable when we truly understand God's blessings. Her wit and insights have helped thousands of women float rather than sink in the stress pool of life, know God deeper, refresh a tired spirit, and attain a peace that passes all understanding. She's a sought-after speaker for conferences, retreats, and banquets. She believes laughter is the best medicine and uses a lighthearted approach to share practical tips for obtaining peace and discovering healing, refreshment, and revitalization of the spirit, body, and mind. In addition to the series of Too Blessed to be Stressed products, including books, devotionals, journals, planners, cookbooks, and adult coloring books, she's also the author of several other books for women. She considers herself a tennis junkie and chocolate athlete, which means she exercises just so she can eat more chocolate. She's a retired piano teacher and orthopedic occupational therapist. She currently lives, loves, and laughs in Central Florida with her husband, Chuck, who we had the pleasure of meeting. They have 2 grown children, 4 grandchildren. You can connect with Deborah M. Coty via her website, Deborah Coty, that's DeborahCoty.com, or on Facebook, author Deborah Coty, Twitter Deborah Coty, and Instagram Deborah Coty. Here to share her newest book, Too Blessed to be Stressed for Moms, is Deborah Coty. Deborah, welcome to Revealing the Truth.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
What fun. You have had great fun as a writer and really as a literary entertainer, which is kind of a new genre. You know, we have comedians, we have actors, but you become a literary entertainer, and that's a high compliment. That those that read your books are not only educated, informed, and grow deeper in their love of God, but they also laugh.
I love that phrase. I think I'm going to adapt that. I've adopted and adapted. I've never heard that before, and I love it. Literary entertainer.
There you go. So that's going to be your new tagline as Deb Coty, literary entertainer, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Let's go back, though, and how did Deb Coty become Deb Coty? Who are the ones that shaped your life when you were little that you got your sense of humor from, that you got your perspective from, that was enough to capture the imagination of the inspiration? And that's really what you've done, is taken the imagination of the inspiration of the Word of God and put that to a way that is tangible, palpable, and joyful. Somebody had to really have influenced you in a great way in order to develop that in you.
I love your phrases. Can I hire you? I need you to be my publicist. You're wonderful.
Well, thank you.
Well, I was actually born near the Georgia-Florida border before it became a smash band, and hence the accent. It's a little bit of twang, Florida, and a little bit of woods, Georgia. And my parents were both believers, both Christians, so I was blessed to be raised in a Christian family. I accepted Jesus as my Savior when I was 8 years old in a little backwoods Baptist church. I loved growing up in a small town, and I have a lot of funny stories about, related to that in all of my books. I love to tell stories. I'm a big storyteller, got them sprinkled throughout. And then as a teenager, I kind of rebelled a little bit. I strayed. But about that time, I discovered a book called Christy by Catherine Marshall. I'm sure some of your listeners can remember that book. It changed my life. Christy changed my life. It showed me some different aspects of a relationship with the Lord that I had never really delved into. And it planted a seed in me that one day I might like to write a book that would touch other hearts the way Christy had touched mine. Well, that seed got backburnered for about 25 years. I went to college, met my husband, Chuck, and then became an occupational therapist, specializing in orthopedic hand injuries, which I did for 36 years. Also taught piano lessons for 20 years. Raised 2 children, a son named Matthew and a daughter named, can you guess? Christy. That's how much that book meant to me. I even named my daughter after it, spelled the same way intentionally. So 25 years later, I'm sitting in a dentist office, waiting, but feeling empty. I was feeling hollow. There was something missing in my life. My youngest was about to fly the coop, and I felt like there was something I should be doing. So I was praying, tell me what it is, Lord. I'm not getting it. I'm just, there's something. It was burning a hole in me. And as I sat there, I felt and I heard that still small voice whisper to my heart 2 words. Just 2, and I knew exactly what it meant. It's time. It's time. And I realized that all those years of reading every book I could get my hands on, loving stories, wanting to embrace the written word, it was time. It was time to follow that dream that God had planted in my heart all those years ago. So I kind of had to start from scratch as far as writing. I hadn't written anything but Christmas newsletters in 25 years, except for medical charts at work. So there I went. I started relearning about grammar and punctuation and how to put together words, stories. And one thing led to another. First, I started submitting magazine articles. That was my first goal. Never realizing that now, 15 years later, I would have 250 plus articles out in print. And then I started writing a newspaper column, kind of a Irma Bombeck Christian spice of life, a lot of humor in it. I love humor. I've always loved humor. My daddy was very droll, Georgia, didn't say much, E.F. Hutton kind of guy, but what he said, you listen to. And my mom just loved to laugh. She still does. She's 90, daddy's 92, and they're still loving and laughing with each other about 2 blocks away from my house. And so they really implanted we had a lot of laughing in our home, a lot of humor. So all these years later, I wanted to incorporate those in my books. So I started out writing historical fiction, which I wrote 2 books, The Distant Shore and Billowing Sails, the sequel to that, based on a true story of a young girl's journey of faith on Merritt Island back in 1904. And then after I wrote that, I kind of shifted gears. I thought, I love to read women's humor. I love to read it, so why don't I try writing it? So I did, and my first effort turned into Mom Needs Chocolate. That was the first book, and then after that shortly came Too Blessed to Be Stressed. And that was a kind of a surprise. It sat there for a year after it came out, and I started writing the next book in the series there, which was called More Beauty, Less Beast, Transforming Your Inner Ogre. I love that title. So I started into that one, and then all of a sudden, Too Blessed to Be Stressed took off and just started selling like crazy. So it was what I call the mama book. It spawned the offspring, which are now the Too Blessed to Be Stressed series. And I have, I think, 42 books and book products now in that series. And the newest of which is Too Blessed to Be Stressed for Moms.
So the whole approach to all of your books, with the exception of the fiction, was to grab a hold of the everyday, ordinary experiences that we all share, but most don't talk about. That our spiritual life is often death by 1,000 cuts, and healing is healing with the application of 1,000 Band-Aids.
Well said.
And so this has been your approach in Too Blessed to Be Stressed, was taking and addressing those 1,000 cuts and putting the 1,000 Band-Aids. And the theme comes through in Too Blessed to Be Stressed for Moms in the reality of motherhood, the reality of raising children, the reality of assessing our stress levels in order to be able to become closer to God, become more God-like in our responses to our children, and how to navigate knowing that your child can't remember where they left their shoes, but they can remember where every one of your buttons are.
Yes, indeedy. I think all my books are geared toward relationships, inward, outward, and upward. Those are what I'm focusing on. Yourself, your own personal spiritual growth when you're in the trenches. And I try to keep it real. Reality, like you said, is the key word. Outward friendships, girl friendships are especially important to women. And then upward, relationships with Papa God.
In the raising of your two children, you kind of looked backwards at and created a kind of an inventory of that which stressed you. What were some of the common stressors that when you would share with your girlfriends some of the things you were going through, you found out that although you thought you were the only one that was going through it, they began to share that they too were going through the same experience?
Yes, and I think that's very important for women to connect with each other. I'm a big advocate of girlfriendships, and that we need to get together at least once a week with other women and share these things. You mentioned that one of the things, this is awkward, one of the things that really used to torque me, I call them mom triggers, and I talk about that a lot in the book, trying to get women to identify their own mom triggers that set you off. Most of them are obvious, you know, but for me, the biggie was the debris, the fallout of motherhood all over the house, just everywhere, just a mess. My kitchen was a minefield, you know. So one night I wrote a song, and now I am not a singer. I am a joyful noiser, but I will share this with you, and in the spirit of you're not judging me, right?
No.
This is evidence of what was really, this is my motherhood wrapped up in one little song. It's to the tune of Three Blind Mice, and it's called Chunks. It goes, chunks, 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 standing in the chunks, 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 everywhere there's chunks, bananas and apples and pizza hunks. Don't know if they're from Junior's mouth or his rump. Sorry, I'm not supposed to laugh in the middle there. I can't even remember the other line. La da 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 da. These chunks, chunks, chunks. So that's kind of, I try to look at things with a laugh rather than a weep, because if you weep a little weep, you know, you just kind of start weeping bigger weeps and bigger weeps. So in my opinion, it's much better to try to look for the bright side, look for the funny side, because it's there even if you dig a little bit for it.
Do all mothers experience stress?
You bet. You bet. I think mothers have all kinds of different, as I mentioned, triggers, and I think different, it has to do with their personality, it has to do with their child's personality, it has to do with the number of children that they're dealing with. I've had many mothers confide in me and say, mother of 4 children, I was a much better mother of 2. And as far as temper, as far as being able to spend time with the children. But what I want to try to do, whether you have 2 children or 20 children, and I actually have a friend with nearly that, and I've actually written about her in some of my books, but I want us to understand some of the things that we're dealing with and try to be educated about the different aspects of motherhood and the different, say, even the 4, there's 4 basic parenting styles that I think many people are not aware of. I wasn't until I started doing research for my books. And it's very informative to know that, because then you know how to deal with your own deficits and your children's. Would you like me to talk about those 4 parenting styles?
I would love that.
Well, they're basically, they've been pinpointed by behavior scientists, but I personally added animals to them because it's so much easier for me to remember them when I think about them in terms of animals. So the first one is the polar bear, which is the authoritative type of parenting. And by the way, we don't fall into totally one of these 4 groups. We usually are a mixture, a combination. But if you listen to the qualities, you'll understand a little more about yourself, and you'll see that you're not alone and that other people are also going through some of the same things you are. So the polar bear daddy, he's out of there after a one-night stand. Mama bear pretty much raises the cubs on her own, and they are blind, toothless, totally helpless from the beginning. It's all up to her. Now she sets limits, she sets parameters, she expects certain behaviors out of those cubs, and if they don't produce that behavior, then they're punished. she whacks them upside the head with her big paw, right? Well, the human counterpart of the polar bear technique, usually they have high expectations of their children, and there are consequences if they do not hold to certain behaviors. But the communication lines are open. There's give and take. The kids are talking, the parents are talking, they're listening to each other, and there are boundaries, but the child is raised to understand that she can speak to her parents without harsh judgment. Then there's the harp seal. Those are the neglectful type of parenting. Mrs. Harp Seal, she's a dedicated parent for all of 2 weeks after that baby's born. And then the baby Harp Seal is left on the ice on his own. He has to learn how to hunt and swim or he dies. And in fact, 30% of all Harp Seal cubs die. So sadly, we don't want to be a human counterpart of the harp seal because that produces children with a very poor foundation of trust. They usually have a hard time forming relationships with other people, and they struggle with abandonment issues because mom is not tuned into their needs. I'm going to grab a swig of water real quick.
You go for it.
Pardon. Then there's black eagles. Pardon. I'm going to pause a minute. You take over for just a second and let me regain my voice.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. We're going to go to a quick break. We're talking with Deborah Coty, author of Too Blessed to be Stressed for Moms. I'll share with you the first title of the first chapter, which just got me laughing right from the start, and it's entitled PMS, which is Pretending Mom's Sane. Quoting from Psalm 25:15, if I keep my eyes on God, I won't trip over my own feet, talking about the mayhem that every mom faces and the realities of a life of mayhem. We've often said that when we let our children run our homes, we're letting the inmates run the asylum. I know that that's not politically correct, and some may be offended by that reference, but I've obtained the age of now past I'm almost 67, where in this course of this life with this new labeling, somebody's going to be offended at anything you say, so you might as well just address the common offenders. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to dig into more of this because there's so many nuggets. There's the shoulds in a mom's life that cause her stress. There are tips for melting away angst, why just not the kids need a timeout, but why the parents need a timeout, how moms can get their own attitude adjustment. We seem to be focused on changing the attitudes of our children when oftentimes it's our victory is in our response to the situation and not to the situation itself. We're going to take a short break and rejoin the author of Too Blessed to be Stressed for Moms, Deb Coty, in just a few minutes. Back. Shalom. I'm the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, Executive Director of Igniting a Nation and host of the daily TV program Revealing the Truth, seen live every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time at www.ianbn.com, and then replayed throughout the day and night via our website. All of our segments can be seen on the Igniting a Nation YouTube channel. Since our launch in January of this year, we've expanded our global reach to over 54 countries with a social media following of over 125,000. Our commitment is to bring you the most in-depth interviews with authors, subject matter experts, and thought leaders from around the world. We have interviewed guests from Israel, Brazil, England, India, and all across North America. All of our authors are featured on the Books and Media page on our website, www.ianbn.com. There you can find a direct link to the book you want to order, and we receive a small commission directly from Amazon. There is no cost to you for this service. In addition to our daily teachings and interviews, we make available to you the archive of all of the interviews on our YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram channels. Our live program is available from our homepage, and there is never a charge to you for any of this access. We made the decision long ago that we would remain a commercial-free resource that would not be influenced by any pressure from any outside company. There are only two ways that we are able to continue to operate this ministry and provide you with the only live 4-hour daily Christian television talk show program. The first is through your support and tax-deductible contributions to Igniting a Nation. These can be made directly through the donate button on the website or sent through the mail to Igniting a Nation, 2700 Corporate Drive, Suite 120, Birmingham, Alabama, 35242. The other way we support the program is by offering you a unique opportunity to have access to over 10 years worth of teachings on a subscription basis. The teaching archives contains all of my prior sermons, Torah studies, prophecy in the news videos, and much more for the low subscription price of $5 per month. This subscription grants you unlimited access to over 800 hours of content not available elsewhere and is updated weekly with the most current prophecy classes. In addition to 20 hours of original TV programming each weekday, we invite you to join us live every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday evenings for our Prophecy in the News classes. The times and locations are listed on our events page on the website www.ianbn.com. Every day, you and I are faced with the challenge of where we will go to hear the truth. We are committed to bring you the only program of its kind that covers the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. We cannot do this without your support. Since we launched on January 5th, 2017, we have aired over 300 individual teachings, interviews, and commentaries not available anywhere else. We are now working side by side with almost every major Christian publishing house to bring you the most in-depth feature interviews possible. Our 1-hour features address every subject that affects the believer's life. We are hearing of salvations from the Middle East, Africa, and all across the United States. Lives are being changed every day, and we have only just begun. Our mission is to become your trusted resource and grant you access to the people, tools, and information you need to grow in your relationship with the Lord. You can help us by liking us on social media and through your financial support. We know you have many choices in who you support, but we are prayerfully asking you to consider helping us keep revealing the truth, true to our calling, to cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth like no other program available. Donate today and help us bring the message to the four corners of the earth. Visit www.ianbn.com and donate, buy a book, or subscribe to our teaching archives. Without you, we do not exist. Shalom and welcome back to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and we're talking with Deborah M. Coty, author of Too Blessed to Be Stressed for Moms, a devotional, but a devotional like none other. Deb, welcome back to the program.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
You know, the question that should be on the minds of all of our viewers is do I really need another devotional? Why should I get this devotional? And I will tell you that we get in the studio between 100 and 300 books submitted for interviews every single month. So thousands of books come across my desk, and I actually read every one of them that I'm going to interview. And I will tell you that from an entertainment perspective and a value and entertainment, applied value, entertainment, and real truth is something you're going to find in here which is quite unique. It is the Book of Humor devotional that when you want to feel good about how bad you've been feeling, this is the devotional for you to get. So, Deb, I want to explore a tool that you have right there in the very beginning of the book, which is the assessment of a stress test for moms, a really simple test that I'd like you to take our audience through for them to figure out whether or not they're stressed and whether or not they know that they're stressed. I guess the in the world of recovery, the first step is admitting you have a problem, and
Yep.
and this will guide you through that. So take me through the stress test for moms.
All right. Well, I have 10 questions. And what I ask audiences to do, or people who read the book, is to keep track in your head of which are the truths. And we're going to ask true false questions. You keep track of the ones that you answered true to. First, the voice in my head is usually screaming. I know that can be caused by other things as well, but motherhood is, wonderful for that. 2, the running of my household primarily falls to me. True or false? 3, during an average 24-hour day, I sleep less than 6 hours. It's shocking to me when I have audiences, live audiences, answer this question when I do a speaking engagement. I cannot believe how many women exist on 2 hours of sleep a night on an average day. It's shocking. Wow, it explains a lot, doesn't it?
It does.
Number 4, I can't remember the last time I saw my car floorboards. Number 5, the drive-through guy at our favorite fast food place knows me by name. 6, my idea of a good time is a whole hour by myself. I still feel that way, and I have grandchildren now. 7, I am better described by the word frazzled than dazzled. I think most mothers become frumps in their own mind, and it's a problem. It affects us in more areas than you would imagine, than men imagine, I would think. And so I address that in the book. I think that's a self-esteem is a very big issue for moms. Number 8, after 9 o'clock p.m., I'm usually too exhausted to even think about romance. Number 9, my forgot to-do list is almost as long as my to-do list. My forgot to-do list goes all night long. It just replays and replays like a bad movie, and I'm sure a lot of other people have that problem too. That's probably why we only get 2 hours of sleep a night. Number 10, if worry were an Olympic event, I'd be a gold medalist. Then I asked my audience to count up their positives, the ones they answered true. If you had 3 to 4, yellow alert, you are at risk of becoming stressed out. 5 to 7, orange alert, you're at toxic stress levels. And 8 to 10, red alert, you are in need of immediate stress intervention. We get to a point where we have constipated calendar issues, and we need an activities enema. And I think that is one of the big things that moms can do to help themselves. And I like to talk about how to do that in the book too.
Is your audience a new mom, a new grandmom, mom of a teenager? Where do you find this being applicable?
Yes, I would say all of the above. This particular book, Too Blessed to Be Stressed for Moms, geared more toward the younger moms, but there are also chapters in there for the moms of teens and moms of grown women and men who have their own grandchildren. But my original book, Too Blessed to Be Stressed, it also addresses kind of the gamut of womandom. So I try to get a little bit for everybody in there.
Is it true in your mind that men don't look at these same situations and circumstances in the same way?
Do you believe that they do?
I was a single dad for 7 years, so
hats off to you, bro.
So when my daughter wanted me to put her hair in a bun, I took a hot dog bun and a rubber band and put her hair in a bun. So
I would say yes, men definitely look at parenting a bit different than women. Definitely.
I can imagine a small group of young moms using this as a common kind of do a chapter or 2 devotions a week and talk about it. I also have become a big believer after the influence of Rhonda Stoppe. I don't know if you know Rhonda, but she's considered the no regrets mom, living life with no regrets, the no regrets marriage, restoring romance, raising sons to be men, a whole series. Somebody that has influenced, she's a regular on our program, that mentorship finding older moms, older couples that will mentor younger couples, or older moms that will mentor younger moms. I see them relating to and reminding themselves. You know, you reach an age when you look back now at raising your children, it's a faint reflection of what it felt like, but you can't recreate the panic. You can only describe the panic. You can't feel that panic again. But to the ones that are actually in the panic, in the stress, in the frantic, you give some extraordinary tips for melting the angst when you need a timeout, not your kids. How do you approach that in the book?
Well, I'm actually going through all this stuff again. My grandchildren live next door to me. So I am with twin 3-year-olds and a 7-year-old almost constantly. So I'm kind of doing the do-over, you know. And the things I screwed up the first time, I'm trying to get better this time. That's one of the points I make in my book. When we moms, we really like to shoot ourselves in the foot so many times, and we think we're doing a terrible job. We think we're the worst mother in the world, and sometimes we probably are. But in general, we have to remember that everything we do has been done before, you know, and that Papa God, He is the King. He is the best at redemption, and He can redeem all of our horrendous mistakes. So if we can just remember that. But one of the things that you mentioned, tips for melting angst, I'll throw 3 out at you that I think are very important. One is to become your own manager. You know, so many times we women, we just kind of go with the flow, and however life pushes us, or our marriages push us, or society pushes us, that's the way we go. We don't give it a lot of thought. We just do. We just react and go. But if we can become our own manager, we can learn to say no, put some parameters out there. You know, even the well-meaning people who keep pulling us and draining us and asking to do things, they don't realize all the stress we are under as mothers. And we have to finally grow a backbone and say no. We have to discern what is worth our precious time. I view the energy that we are allotted in a day as a candy bar. I relate everything to food. So you have this candy bar. What's your favorite? Mine's Snickers. What's your personal favorite candy bar?
I actually like a frozen Snickers.
Oh, okay. So we have our frozen Snickers. I do too. And you take a nibble. A little later, you take a gulp. Few minutes later, you take a bigger hunk out of it. And then you keep doing that all day until about 3 o'clock. You've finished your candy bar. Crash, burn. You know, we have to learn to pace ourselves. The 3 P's. We have to prioritize, we have to plan, and we have to pursue that plan. And we have to make sure that we make that candy bar last through the whole day into the evening, or we are done way before. And that's when we get into big, deep doo-doo with our kids and with our husbands and with our girlfriends, and we start, you know, sticking our foot in it every which way. So we have to become our own managers. And another thing, which I mentioned a little while ago, we have to control how much we do. Those constipated calendars, they creep up on us before we know it. Every single square on those little on our calendars, every one is constipated. It's full. It's overflowing. We have to flush away the non-essentials, and that means take out your red marker. I advocate every month before you start the month, and start marking out things that are not essential to the top priorities in your life at this time. And those top priorities are going to change as we morph into older and different people, so the priorities will too. So we have to reassess periodically. So that's part of becoming your own manager. The next thing is to protect your mind. And I know that this is probably radical for some people, but I say limit your news exposure to once per day. Now, I'm not saying play ostrich and bury your ignorant head in the sand, but I'm saying if you want to live out Philippians 4:8, which says, fill your minds with good things, positive things, beautiful things, then we can't be dwelling on the news 4 times a day. because the news, of course, is 90% negative. Death, destruction, evil. Horror makes good headlines. So we have to limit what we put in there. And I think if we do that, and I did this, and it made a huge difference in my life, and I strongly suggest this to other women who are just in the habit of filling their minds with all this horrible stuff out in the world. You know, obviously there's evil and shootings and things that fill us with fear and dangerous things for us and for our children. But if we can limit that, I think you'd be surprised what an anxiety relieving difference it'll make in your general perspective. And one other thing that I advocate is to unplug. We are so into technology these days. We really, really are. We need to, for our own sakes and for the sakes of our families, unplug. I say 3 hours, a half a day, once a week, or if you can, most of the time people will make sure they do it once a month, but if you can do it once a week, that's even better. Women need to go by themselves with nothing but their Bible, their journal, someplace quiet and secluded, just you, your creator, and if possible, a bubble bath. I love to take that bubble bath. That first hour should be resting, and that's the best way to do that is to do it in a bubble bath with bubbles up to your nose for an hour. Decompress, as I call it. Let it go. Rest. Get into a different plane. Then for the second hour, that's where you pray. You use your Bible, you pray, you talk to the Lord, you see what he has to say. And the third hour is spent out somewhere, I call them prayer walks. A nice inspirational location, if possible out of nature. Walk, open yourself up, laugh, sing, be thankful for everything you lay your eyes on. And it's a refreshing time. And you don't answer your phone this whole time. And that's why I think probably that's a little radical for some people, but if they would try it, I think they would find it absolutely changes their life.
Deb, there are common things across the spectrum that erode our faith foundation. They are guilt, shame, and comparison. And I know that moms suffer in this area of guilt, shame, and comparison. Guilt for maybe they flew off the handle or they reacted instead of responded. Shame that the kid's the one screaming in Walmart and is acting nothing like they've ever acted before, and they have no response mechanism. You can't use duct tape. You can't use tie wraps.
You can't?
No, you can't. It's apparently that's something new. Because in the 50s it was certainly the way of the world.
Yeah.
But the other one is this trap of comparison. Looking at the family that the kids are well-mannered, the husband and wife are quote-unquote co-parents, and there's unity in the home, and the kids seem to be, this one knows at 9 he's going to be a doctor, and he's just he's devoted to being a good student, and he reads and he sits quietly, and the other one knows he wants to be a pastor, and he's involved in every youth activity and sold out for the Lord, and they look like they have the perfect life, and you give a comparison where you're looking into this cracked mirror and you're tearing yourself down saying, I'm never going to be that. I can't have that. There's something wrong with me, and what can I do? Why bother? Because I'm never going to have that, and our standard has become, because of Instagram, because of Pinterest, because of YouTube, because of Facebook, because of Periscope, because of all this stuff where these highlights, the best mom's dance, the best dad, daughter singing in the car together, the best skit, all of those things, and you look at it and say, oh, we're never going to have that. My husband's not interested in that. My kids aren't interested in that. What advice? What will they find in Too Blessed to Be Stressed for Moms that's going to give them the tools they need to get out of that cage, to get out of that prison?
I would say you screwed up. Yes, you did. So did I. So did she and her and them and all of us. And I think if we can admit that, yes, we do have problems. We are not the best mother. We do screw up. That's the first step. But you know what? It's okay. It is okay. Papa God created you with all your faults to raise these little people with all their faults. No one has got it together. My book is not for the have it all together. It's for the scattered and tattered, the scar and scared. You know, we are all blemished. We are all tarnished, and we can still be beautiful. And I think that we just have to remember every day is a new day. We can shake that mental etch-a-sketch, and we can start again. Papa God does not require perfection. He only wants us to be humble. He requires humility. And we got plenty of that. If you've been a mom more than 10 minutes, you've got plenty of that. And we can't let the mistakes of yesterday ruin today. And I think that's another good reason why we need to join with other moms, why we need to buddy up, why we need to realize we're not the only ones lugging all this overloaded baggage around the airport. There's a help desk. We need to get some help. We need to get there. We need to connect with other people, label our baggage, and then lose it. We don't need the mom guilt. Mom guilt has so many subgroups: nursing versus non, working versus stay at home, daycare choice, the mode of discipline that you use with your kids, DIY remorse, the pressure to join, get your kid in all these activities. You know, there's so many different subgroups that can produce mom guilt. So we have to figure out what it is that's causing us that nagging feeling of inferiority, to own it, and then ask forgiveness if need be, and then drop it. Drop the luggage, leave it behind, and carry on. Papa God's ready to bless you, and he makes your kids turn out whether you're a screw up or not, you know, which is, to me, very comforting.
Your devotional is filled with stories, as you are a storyteller. Take a moment, if you would, and think about some of your favorite stories from this book that you like to share. And even if it's overall, even if it's from the Too Blessed to Be Stressed series, some of the things that are going to give us an idea of your, I don't want to call it a jaundiced view, but kind of shaking the norm of how we've created these traps of comparing ourselves to our moms or our dads or others, and why God has an individual, unique plan for you and your family and how you need to walk in that plan. But you have some rather humorous stories. Pick some of them and share with us, if you would, some that tickled you the most.
I'll show you two quick ones, one about my son and one about my daughter. When my son came home from the hospital, I think he was about 2 days old, I was trying to make dinner. I put him in one of those little swings, the automatic swings that go back and forth. Well, he's 35 years old now, so this was before they had the ones that do all the fancy stuff they do now. This one you had to hand crank, and the baby would do the startle every time he'd fall asleep, and you'd crank it. Wah, 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 wah.
Right.
You remember those, right? Okay, so I had him in the swing. I was in there fixing dinner. I could look through my kitchen door at this little hallway where I had him, so I could see him, you know, and there was a wall in front of him and a wall in back of him, little protected cubby, kind of like a large closet, but open. So I'm watching him, and I'm making my dinner, I'm trying to get things together, and all of a sudden, I realize I'm hearing this odd sound. It's a kind of a splat, splat, splat. It's just regular. I'm like, what in the world? And I walk over to the door, and I'm looking, and my sweet little darling baby had runny diarrhea, and every time he went up, the diarrhea slung out of the diaper up one wall and then back on the other wall, splat, splat, splat. He was painting brown streaks up and down the wall. Oh, so at that point I realized if I'm ever going to make it through this motherhood journey, then I better learn to laugh, even if it's horrible. And that was my first lesson. Another time, my daughter, when she was 6 years old, we went to a very small church, and at that time they didn't have a children's church like most churches have now, where the little guys go in away from the parents, so nobody has to worry about them. So at this church, after they were 5, they went into big church with their parents. Well, my daughter Cricket, she was the wiggly worm, and she would sit there squirming and picking her nose and singing to herself and drawing all over her bulletin and doing everything but listening to the pastor. So I gave her the lecture one Sunday morning on the way to church. I said, "You're a big girl now, hon. You know, you're going to have to learn to sit there, be still, and listen to the pastor. So I want to see you listening today." So we get there, and we have this visiting minister filling in. Our regular pastor was very laid back, funny, kind of like you know, just a good guy, funny, loved to be around him. Well, this fellow that was filling in was very regal and very pious and very straight. So he was just preaching away, you know, and then he got to the offertory and he lifted his hands in the air and he said, "Lord, without you, we are but dust." And my little girl, who was listening, piped up in her little squeaky voice so all the congregation could hear and said, "Mommy, what is butt dust?" That one kind of grows on you.
I love that. We are but dust in the wind.
We are but dust.
You know, as just to give you perspective of kids, growing up as a Jewish kid, I thought Lex Luthor was the head of the Lutheran Church. I thought that the Episcopalians, because they had the Archbishop of Canterbury, used the Canterbury Tales. So, you know, you're shaped by your upbringing. I grew up in a very, very boxed-in Jewish worldview, in a very boxed-in Jewish community. So all of our lessons were Eastern European values and Eastern European lessons, very different than Western, because we were first generation and first post-Holocaust generation. Very, very, very different. For the parent that thinks that they can't fix anything, they've gone too far, it's all ruined, it's hopeless, they can never take back control, they found themselves enabling, they found themselves offering anything to appease just because they wanted to buy, pay the kidnapper the ransom. All they wanted was proof of life. They just wanted to quiet the child, and they began to yield, and that yielding became a pattern, and now they're in this pattern where the child is the demander, and they are at the will and mercy of the child's demands. And that's probably a picture that's more common than not with the new entitlements, the new self-identification. Your kid has a Facebook account and he writes that my mom beats me or my mom hates me or whatever it is, or they take a picture of you in your rant and they post it out there and say, you know, available to a good home, you know, free to a good home, and they put your picture out there looking to market you. What's your message to those that think that they're too far gone to find redemption and to get out of the rut of the stress?
I would say to try to remember that Papa God is the master of redemption. That's what he does. That's what he does throughout the entire Bible. That's what he does today. And I feel like we moms are more than willing to storm the gates of hell to rescue our children. But what we really need to do is storm the gates of heaven. And so I have developed a system that I think is an excellent idea when we are at our wits' end and we have totally screwed up. We know we've messed up. We know we're not the best mother. We know our kids are probably going to turn out to be serial killers. But the only thing we can do at that point is to turn to the master of the universe. And I call the system hot fudge verses. To pray specific verses right out of the Bible, to insert your child's name or your grandchild's name so that he can use his power through his own word. Because he tells us his word is sharper than any two-edged sword. That's in Hebrews. So what I recommend is to take about 2 hours. It took me about 2 hours, and I went through the Psalms. And I pulled out about 25 different verses that I could pray over my kids, specifically to their needs. Here's an example. Psalm 3:3 from the NIV version says, "You are a shield around blank." Insert your child's name. Todd. "O Lord, bestow glory on him and lift up his head." Psalm 3:3. You're praying God's own word over your child. What could be more powerful than that? Especially if we're at the point where we just don't know how to pray. And I know we all reach that point at some time. Psalm 138, verse 8 from the Message version. Finish what you started in blank. Finish what you started in Jean, Lord. Your love is eternal. Don't quit on her now. And there are just so many verses like that that we can apply to our own children. Psalm 71:3 from the NIV version. Be Jonah's rock of refuge to which he can always go. Give the command to save him, for you are his rock and fortress, O Lord. You know, so these are wonderful, powerful prayers, and it's something it's accessible to all of us. We can get in there and we can feel encouraged by the word while we are developing these. While we're making our list, you can transport them with you anywhere, put them on your phone, put them on sticky notes in your car, on your mirror in the bathroom when you're getting ready. You can pray right then and there for specifics. And I think God works through those prayers.
Amen.
He loves it when we pray.
We've been talking with the best-selling author of the book Too Blessed to Be Stressed, who's now released Too Blessed to Be Stressed for Moms, a devotional, a guidebook, a book filled with humor and practical advice for moms who are embracing, moms who want to improve, moms who want to grow, moms who think that they are so stressed out that they can never tackle and never accomplish anything. This is the book for you, filled with humor, wisdom, strong biblical foundation. Deborah Coty, thank you for sharing Too Blessed to Be Stressed for Moms with us here. Thank you to our author's willingness to be transparent about her own life and her own struggles, and take that and let you know that you are not alone. Not just with God, great comfort there, but there are other mothers that are going through the same thing, and this is a way to bring moms together to talk about and laugh about and cry about some of the struggles you have, but you have a support system and a friend. You can find Deb Coty online and follow her. And the inspiration of the entire series of Too Blessed to Be Stressed, this edition, Too Blessed to Be Stressed for Moms. Deb Coty, thank you so much for sharing your story with us here on Revealing the Truth.
Thank you so much for having me.
God bless you, my friend. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll bring you the next edition of Revealing the Truth.